Hey everybody, Hunter back again from Showtime Studios. Going to do a little bit of a break in the Mac DM600 build here and do a video answer to John Green, who wanted to know how to lower the front end of a Revell of Germany W900 Kenworth kit. And I've got the actual parts laying here out of that kit, and there's a couple different ways to go about doing it. But I'll show you the easiest one, and that won't require a whole lot of modifications. So we'll pan the camera down here and we'll get started on this. Okay, John, this is the actual I-beam out of the W900 kit from Revell, Germany. And this is the non-steerable front axle, which makes it a little bit more difficult in some aspects, and other ways it's a little bit easier. The one thing to lowering the front of that truck, about the only thing that you can really do is you can get roughly a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch of drop total, which will drop your height over top of the tires by 1/8 of an inch to the fender well, which is reasonable. It's not going to be the slammed look. If you are looking for you know, something that's really lowered down, what you're going to have to do is actually modify this I-beam, or I know there's some 3D printed axle or I-beams out there that are drop axles. You can go that route, but to modify what you have, the easiest way to do it is to take the front spring assemblies that you have, and you will notice that right here on the front spring assembly, there's a little block that the I-beam rests against. What you want to do is, I mean, there's several different ways you can cut this off, but what I like to use is my little photo etched saw blade, and I will come in and just trim off that little block that sits on top of the I-beam off of the bottom of the spring. And what that'll do is drop you about 1/16 of an inch just by getting rid of that. Now, if 1/16 of an inch is all that you want, make sure before you cut this block all the way off of there that this does have a locator on it. So what you want to do before you cut that all the way off is just take a drill bit in your pin vise and go right in against the stop that's in here, right in the center of that recess, and just mark, just lightly drill into it a little bit, and all you're doing is just marking where that center point is. And then you can come back in after you've done that and finish taking off that little block that's under the spring. And I have a bunch of these axle assemblies laying around, so that's why I'm actually cutting one of them up, just to show you, you know, how I go about doing that on lowering it. And like I say, this is doing it so that you don't have to do a lot of modification or anything, especially with the tie rod and drag link and all that kind of stuff. You don't have to modify any of that. If you get real drastic with it, you're going to have to modify a bunch more stuff, and it gets a little bit more complicated. But we've got that cut off, and like I say, we drilled that little hole in there just to see if we can get the camera to focus in here on it. And yeah, you can see there where I drilled the hole in the center of that spring, and that's our locator point. So we want to center that up over our I-beam. And I'm just going to go in and clean this off with the hobby knife a little bit, just to smooth everything out. Just like that. And we'll switch over to our sanding stick here. And we'll go ahead and flush that off real nice, smooth it out, take the mold line out of it. And you would do the same procedure on the other spring. And like I say, when you're done, it's going to look like this right here. So we can get the focus. There we go. You can see there's no step on the bottom of that spring. There's no block on it. That'll give you a 1/16 of an inch drop there. And you have the hole that we drilled in here to center up over your I-beam. So that's one way to get a little bit of drop out of it. Now the other way to do it is, if you look at the spindles, we'll hold it up here the way it goes. If you look over on this side here, you will see from the bottom of the I-beam down, there's more of a step in here. There's more distance in here than it is at the top. What you can do is go in with the razor knife and cut this out, cut the spindle loose, take this bottom section out and add it to the top. And what that'll do is raise the spindle up just like a drop spindle. The only problem with that is all of your steering linkage and your drag link and all that stuff also has to be modified, or you're going to start running into problems there. So the easiest way to get another 1/8 of an inch, or roughly in that neighborhood, lower, is to take the mounting pins that's out here for your brake drums, or your backing plates actually in that kit. And all we're going to do is just cut those off. And I'm actually going to use the number 11 blade to do this. And I'm just going to snip that bad boy right off of there. Alright, now what we've done is just take off the little mounting pin that was on the outside of our spindle. And then we'll go in with the sanding stick and we'll just lightly clean that up and make sure that's nice and flat, because there is a mold line down through there. So make sure you get that mold line out and get the outside part of that spindle nice and true. And once I sand it here, I'll hold it up, see if we can get the camera to focus in on the part that we just sanded down and made look better. There we go. And what we have now is, well, a part that's out of focus there. But you can see there in the center of the I-beam, that's where the, there we go, the camera's focusing now. You can see the dark gray circle there. That's where the mounting pin was originally. Now all we're going to do is take that same mounting pin, and if you cut it off with the number 11 blade, just like I did, there's a little block on it that lines up the backing plate. If you cut it off with the number 11 blade, you can keep that little block. And the next thing that you want to do is just take some extra thin or whatever glue you're using, and put a little bit toward the top edge of the spindle. And then take that little block that you have left, and you want to just have it go just above the top edge of the spindle. And make sure that you line the pin up in the center of this little rectangle that's on here. And like I say, this will give you almost an 1/8 of an inch more drop added to the 1/16 that we took off for the spring. And I'm just sliding this around just to get it into place here. We'll hold it up in front of the camera and I'll show you what we look like when we're done with this step. Okay, now what we've done is, if you look at this side over here, you will tell that it's raised up higher than this side. That is about the 1/8 of an inch difference that you have, and the only thing that will affect is the backing plate and the wheel and tire assembly itself. All it'll do is just raise it up in the chassis and close up some of that gap that you're not liking between the top of the tire and the fender well. And it still has a little mounting pin on there to line up your backing plate. And just, you know, like I say, just glue that on there, keep it in the center, and let it sit for a while. And then when you're done, you can kind of tweak this a little bit to make sure that it's parallel with the top of your I-beam, and then look at it from the side and make sure that it's not it's running true with the center line of the I-beam. So just kind of slate everything and make sure it looks good. But when you're done, that's what it should look like right there. And you can see that that little mounting pin is still up there. And this is the factory side. So hopefully that gives you an idea on how to lower a Revell Germany W900 Kenworth in the front. That's about all the drop that you're going to be able to get out of it without making it look kind of goofy. But you know, that's about 3/16 of an inch, so that's a pretty fair amount of drop. And like I say, if you need any more than that, you can also go to Class A Resins. Ben Wicker, he sells an aftermarket drop I-beam that's available. I don't think they're very expensive, so you can also go that route. But if you just want to make the parts and, you know, modify what you have there, this is the way to do it. So hopefully it helps you out on how to lower the front end of that truck. If you have any more questions, just you know, leave me a comment and I'll get back to you on that. So like always, thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.